All right, here we go.
Another time, huh?
Welcome back.
Thank you, man.
Welcome
Drinking
back.
a little rum in L.A.
Yeah, we drinking rum. We getting twisted on a Thursday.
For sure, for sure.
You know, that's what it is. So I just finished your book. I just finished the audio version of your book. So I listened to you telling. And the thing what I love the most about the book is I read a lot of audiobooks.
Well, you listen to a lot.
I listen to a lot of audiobooks. You're right. No, actually,
Right.
I listen to a lot of audiobooks. You actually did this book in your own voice.
And I had done 2 other books that I didn't do in my own voice.
Yeah, which is not as cool.
But I did it because this is a book that means more to me than I think that people write books for a lot of reasons. I wrote this book because I felt like it was important to have a conversation that people wouldn't have. And I think the only way the society is comfortable is if they're doing something. Like, we can all get together, we're watching sports. We can all get together at a concert. We can all get together at a movie. We can watch some of the same TV shows together. So it seems like the American psyche is more receptive when it's getting something it likes or understands or that's affirming to them. And I think that's laughter. And so it was important to me to write that book from that vantage point. It's called How Not to Get Shot and Other Advice from White People.
Right. It's actually co-written by a white guy, though.
It is. It is. Well, you have to have a white guy. Like, I don't even care a driver's license, just an actual white guy around with me.
Oh, just in case.
Right. I needed somebody to speak that language for me. What does that mean? Like,
Brad, go ahead.
Right. Tell me what that means.
Okay. And this is actually your 3rd book.
It is my 3rd book.
Right. The first one is I Want You to Shut the Fuck Up.
Right.
How the Audacity of Dopes is Running America.
Right.
And then Black Man, White House.
Right.
Which was a New York Times bestseller.
Yeah.
I don't know, was the first one a bestseller also?
No.
Okay.
It wasn't.
But the second one was.
The second was. And this one's tracking. So I think they become different kinds of things to me. Like, I didn't know I would like, but I had to write. But I had such a negative experience with Fox News and Megyn Kelly when I'd gone on to talk about my other book, Black Man, White House. She had started the interview out with, it morphed into us talking about policing, and she'd had Mark Furman on the show, who is the poster child for how not to be a policeman. He was a disgraced LAPD officer who lied and was brutal. He lied so much he got a black man off for killing 2 white people.
So you believe that OJ did it?
I do believe it, but I didn't then. But yeah, I do believe OJ did it. But
okay, so when they announced the verdict, you thought he was actually innocent?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And for a lot of different reasons, because I wanted him to be innocent. I didn't understand the space and time. And I thought it was important. I wanted revenge, so I can't pretend like I didn't for all
I think that's why most black people that I speak to, they've told me that they knew that he did it, but they're happy that for once the law actually worked in their favor.
I didn't know that he did it because my psyche, my id would not let me. I'm a lot like America right now. I have to tell myself a lie so I can live a truth I believe in.
Okay.
I have to lie to myself. Like, a lot of Americans have to lie to themselves when they see a kid get gunned down by a police officer. A lot of Americans have to lie to themselves when they see Donald Trump being a racist and pretend like he's not. So to that degree, I'm a lot like a lot of Americans. When OJ, I had to lie to myself and not see what was present in front of me to morph my reality into what I wanted it to be.
Okay. And Mark Furman was on the show with you on Fox.
He was, and I had no idea he was going to be on the show.
Well, he didn't actually overlap. I think he was on before you.
Right.
Right. So you guys didn't actually speak
No,
to each other.
but I didn't know he was going to be there.
Right.
Right.
And this was around the time that I guess, they did the documentary, the ESPN documentary?
Well, I don't know if that was quite, like, I'm
remember, that was the first time I actually saw Mark Furman speak
right.
after the trial, was that ESPN thing.
I think that, I grew up in Los Angeles, so a lot of things Mark Furman did and talked about in the book that he was supposed to be writing that came out during all that trial, I went through. Los Angeles police was very violent. They're still, to date, the most violent police department in the country. They have more shootings in the country than any other police department in the country. They recruited white guys from the South to handle their nigger problem.
Oh, they brought cops from the South?
Yes. It's not... Even the I forgot, not the Warner Commission, but we were under federal moratorium until 2011, 2012 because our police department was so corrupt and violent. We had a policeman that was so corrupt that 2,000 people got let out of prison sentence because he was such a liar. And so, we were talking earlier. When I was 8 years old, growing up in Los Angeles, I grew up like any other kid. I knew my mother, my father. I knew my street. I knew that I liked ice cream. I knew that I liked to run and play. I didn't have any concept of what anything was. So one time I'm walking home from the free lunch program because we'd get free lunches, and it was burrito day. So black dude burrito, pizza, and hot dog day. Forget it.
Okay,
we going to get it.
Right.
Me and my friend are coming back. The sheriff pull us over. They screech up to a halt. They make us put our hands on the car. 8 years old. And they asking us questions about this cat that lived in our neighborhood. And we like 8. I had no idea the police were good or bad. I just didn't. And I said, the hood is hot. And I took my hands off. And this white sheriff leaned into me. He said, nigga, if you take your hands off this hood again, I'm going to blow your head off. And I remember it being a smell on his breath that I could not identify. Till many years later, I realized it was garlic that I smelled on his breath.
Garlic.
And I hate garlic to this day.
Okay, and the significance of that is?
That 3 weeks ago, I was watching a boy in Chicago get pulled over by the police. They put him in handcuffs. He peed on himself. Then they found out that he wasn't the guy they were looking for. And I went, I'm 54 years old. This kid is 10 years old in another place, thousands of miles away, and he's going through the same thing I did. And America thinks it's okay.
Okay. Were there any other instances with police outside of that?
Here's what I'll say about that. Like I said, I grew up in Los Angeles. I remember this kid, man. He just got a CYA, and we were hanging out.
CYA is
California Youth
Authority. Yeah.
And we were hanging out at the liquor store, doing what stuff do. And these sheriffs came up, and they was giving us. And he said, this kid, he just got, I ain't gonna say his name, but he said, if you didn't have that Sam Brown on, which all of us knew that Sam Brown was where they kept their guns and belts and PR-24s and all that type shit. He said, if you didn't have that on, that badge, I'd beat the shit out of you. And that white boy talked slick to him and said, you wouldn't. And they got into a fight. He took his belt off and they got into a fight. And he beat the shit out of him. And it was like Christmas for us.
So the cop actually took his badge off.
Took his badge and gun off and thought, because he was an older dude, this dude was 16 years old, he gave him the business. He whooped him so bad the other cops started shooting in the air to break it up because we were...
Oh, shit. Okay.
And then 2 weeks later, this dude is dead in the dumpster.
Oh, you think it was a revenge killing? Yeah.
This is the prism I watch policing from. You look at the LAPD that was under federal moratorium. You look under Sherman Block and his undersheriff are in jail or waiting to be turned into prison for corruption. What am I supposed to see?
Yeah, LA was an epicenter for a lot of fucked up shit.
But that's where I grew up. Rodney King wasn't an aberration. It was Saturday night.
Right, and the thing is that it was an oddity back then for someone to have any sort of video camera.
Sure.
See, these days, I think kids are watching going, oh, like Rodney King, like, why is that so odd? Because everyone has a video camera in their pocket. Back then, you kind of had to be in some sort of business to have a video camera. Yeah, a camcorder would probably cost you $1,000 back then.
Right.
So the fact that someone actually filmed, and I think they had like a night vision thing going on also, the fact that they actually filmed this happen was a big deal. Yeah. Because stuff wasn't being filmed. But it really
wasn't a big deal because America has always seen black people and people of color being brutalized in pictures. I don't care if it's lynchings. I don't care if it's Emmett Till. The technology, the apparatus we view it from may be different, but we've seen black Americans being brutalized in pictures. Mm-hmm. And so generally with the same result. There have been over 200 race riots in America, and they were started before they had phrases like black on black crime, or before they had cop cams. They were started before there were grand juries because somebody does something to people of color. Everybody knows it's wrong. They pretend like it's not, and people get frustrated and burn shit down.
Someone sent me an interesting meme the other day because you had the Permit Patty situation with a woman who called the cops because the kids were selling water without a permit. Then you had the situation in Oakland where the woman barbecuing situation. Someone sent me a meme that said, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, but they said that calling the cops on black people and hoping the police will shoot them is a new form of lynching.
It's not. It's the same form of lynching.
It's the same form of lynching.
It really is. Black people wanted to vote. Mississippi burning is based on black people wanting to vote.
Right.
Somebody wanted them to do it. But who was complicit in murdering those dudes?
The police?
Right. Emmett Till gets murdered because a white woman called the police on him or said that he looked at her in a disrespectful way. Who looked the other way? So this is not new. It's retro.
It's retro.
It is. So to pretend like it isn't lets people who are now participating in this moment in history off the hook.
Yeah. It's a fucked up situation overall.
No, it's an American situation.
It's an American situation.
It's so American. Like, people got mad at Colin Kaepernick for not wanting, for kneeling during the national anthem. The national anthem wasn't even the anthem. It was a poem by Francis Scott Key where he talks about in the third stanza killing niggas.
Right.
So what America does is scrape racism off. I would submit that there are no songs from the 1800s that black people would like. I don't care if it's Jamie Crack Corn. I don't care what it is. I don't care if the ice cream like.
Right. Yeah. I think I forgot who I interviewed, but we talked about the ice cream song.
Right.
And it was the most racist song ever.
It is. But everything. So
I think it was like N-words like watermelon or something like that. Yeah.
It is. Come get your watermelon.
Right.
So what we have now. It's like, even like as we do this interview, the best thing for people of color to do is to pretend like they don't know what they know. The worst thing that ever happened to American history was Google. Because now I know today we all celebrate our Independence Day. We weren't independent for 100 years, but for convenience we have to pretend like we were. And people will say, "Why are you going back in time? Why are you going back in time?" Like, You're celebrating a lie, but you want me to pretend like I don't know it. That's the thing.
Well, in your book, you have a section about white people saying the N-word.
Right.
And, you talked about how white people have gotten comfortable saying the N-word because of the music and stuff like that. And I've interviewed a lot of rappers, and I talk about, what do you do at your shows when you have, like, almost an all-white audience and they're singing along to your songs and using this word that you're putting in the songs, and most of them are like, yeah, I'm not bothered by it. If it's my song, I'm not really tripping. But you feel that that's gotten white people comfortable in actually saying it.
I don't think white people need to be comfortable. Listen, they invented a word just for us. It's funny how they try to ascribe it to hip hop or to the language we use. Nick has been the American lexicon since the early 1700s. Hip hop been around since 1975. Right. Like, what came first, nigga or the Sugar Hill Gang?
Right.
But it's funny how they blame you for the shit they've said anyway. And I've seen well-intentioned people. You're not repeating what I said. You're repeating what your grandfather, your neighbors, your uncle said. Don't put that on me. You say nigga because you said it all the time.
Well, in the book, you said who should be using the N-word, and you said nobody should say it.
No, nobody should say it, but nobody should kill somebody. Nobody should drink. There are a lot of things nobody should do, but they do.
Because you use it in your own vocabulary.
Of course I do.
Okay. But you've also, what I thought was kind of an interesting point where you gave some alternatives for white people to the N-word.
Right.
Thug.
Right.
Ghetto.
Right.
Sketchy, which I haven't heard before, but, urban.
Right.
And ethnic.
And welfare king.
Welfare king.
Welfare king and super predator. There are all kind of ways to say, a welfare queen, I should say, there are all kind of ways that say the same things they've been saying. Now, the only reason I'm insulted by this entire conversation is that we pretend to be more genteel than we are. That's the only reason I'm insulted.
So you just like it all out in the open.
It is all out in the open, except it's behind closed doors. Like if you want to know, Chris Rock said the best thing, and it's so apropos. He said there's a new app that lets you know if your friends and neighbors and coworkers are racist. It's called Facebook. Because I don't care what you do, if you let people have a curtain in front of them. In other words, I don't care if it's an avatar, they ain't got to say what that picture is. I don't care if it's the Oscar committee or a grand jury. It's generally going to be pretty racist. The result is generally going to be pretty racist.
Yeah, social media is some interesting shit, man.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the amount of people that have told me they wish I would die and, they wish I would burn and,
right.
my mother gets raped and
right.
stuff like that.
Right.
No one's ever said this to my face.
Right. No.
But they feel very comfortable.
No, they have. They just pretend like it wasn't them.
Right.
Anonymity is more of a truth serum than alcohol.
I agree. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Well, you talked about in the book about white people liking white black guys.
Sure.
Okay. And you think you brought up Ben Carson?
Sure. Name me a black guy that white people liked that will ever have a street or a stamp.
Right.
Because
Sheriff Clark's not going to get one.
No. They on to the and you'll never see all those guys all together. In other words, once you've had your season of being the nigga du jour, they're done with you and they're on to the next one.
Right. Clarence Thomas is not going to be celebrated.
Clarence Thomas was an affront to Thurgood Marshall. Thurgood Marshall won so many cases in front of the Supreme Court that they went, man, you here all the time. We might as well give you a job.
Right, because Thurgood's got schools named after him. He's very celebrated.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Clarence Thomas, if he didn't take a picture with the Supreme Court justices, they would think he was a nigga that photobombed that picture.
I mean, in fact, did you see the Thurgood Marshall movie?
Sure.
I was kind of disappointed.
Well,
I'm like, with the history of this man, of what he's done, they're going to focus on this one case about a black guy that was fucking with a white girl.
Because America has to have the amount of blackness they can tolerate. It has to. It has to have the proportionate amount of blackness that's appropriate with their tolerance level.
That was just enough for them right there.
We had enough nigga for right now. It's just true. And it's hilarious to me.
Yeah. Like I said, I was really watching this movie hoping I was going to learn more about Thurgood Marshall. I really did not learn very much.
No. Because you have an industry that needs to make money.
Yeah.
And they pretend to be they want to be historically accurate. They want to be socially relevant.
Mm-hmm.
But I still got to have people going to movie theaters buying something that they're necessarily... What I know about society in general, they don't hear what they don't want to hear. The only reason Fox News exists is because old white people want to have their perspective reaffirmed. Mm. If I were a vegetarian and I only ate one thing, or a vegan, I ate one thing, or a meat eater and I only ate one thing, I'd be deficient in other things. Mm-hmm. You need a well-rounded, balanced diet. You need plants, you need proteins, and if you're getting your source of physical nutrition or spiritual nutrition or mental nutrition from one source, you're deficient in other sources. There are people who refuse, and this is people who are liberal and people who are conservative, people who are hard right or hard left. If they're getting their information from one source, they can't be a well-rounded human being because they only have their positions edified.
Well, why did you go on Fox News anyways? You knew what you were going to run into.
Because only cowards play home games.
Okay.
Only cowards play home games all the time.
You want to go to an away game?
Yeah. You got to, no. To be great, you got to win when you ain't supposed to.
Okay. So you go on the show, and you and Megyn Kelly basically get into it.
Sure. Here's what we do know. He had a permit to carry a gun.
When you get a permit to carry a gun, they tell you exactly how to act when a police officer pulls you over.
That doesn't mean he didn't threaten the officer.
You're willing to give them a presumption of innocence.
I'm not giving them presumption. Well, the law gives them the presumption of innocence.
No, their badge gives them a presumption of innocence.
We don't know the facts. I mean, we saw this happen with Michael Brown and Ferguson.
And we still don't know the facts there. We have a police officer's word and a grand jury's word.
No, we have the Department of Justice's word.
The Department of Justice shut down Ferguson. Ferguson had to be shut down because it was so corrupt.
The Department of Justice found that the police there had endemic racism. They found that.
Right.
But they also exonerated Officer Darren Wilson.
That's not a...
And they found Hands Up, Don't Shoot was a lie.
Let me ask you something.
And that Michael Brown was the aggressor.
Wow. Here's what I'll say.
Don't wow me.
Don't tell me not to wow you. I can say wow if I want to, and I'll tell you this.
That is what they found.
I'll tell you this. They found systemic racism, right? So it's unbelievable. They also found systemic racism, and we know that Darren Wilson left the department because it was so racist it had to be disbanded, and he went to Ferguson, another department that is rife with racism.
So that makes him a racist.
Absolutely. You know what? I have no problem.
Michael Brown grabbed that officer's gun and tried to shoot him in his patrol car.
That is, no one has proven that.
Listen, it's funny to have a white woman try to overtalk me when I've been married to a black woman all this time.
You've been in training.
Come on, you light work. I got to do this just to eat. But you invited me to there's a certain amount of decorum you have to have. And I am respectful for the fact that I'm in your house. Like, it's all kind of psychological stuff. Her chair was higher, so mine would be lower.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, yeah, look at it.
Okay.
Her chair was higher. All these psychological things happen because people want a certain affect.
Okay.
And I was literally there to talk about the book and my perception of policing, and you start this conversation out with a discredited liar. This dude not only discredited, he was a liar, he got him off, and he moved to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, which is the bastion of white ring races. He moved there. So everything we thought he was, he was. Now, I'm not saying that meant OJ was guilty, or innocent, but he still was he was the embodiment of everything we ever believed that they would be. And that's the guy you choose to be your expert.
Okay.
We can't have an honest conversation.
Well, I guess this book was birthed from that,
Sure.
Fox interview, where I guess, what you said was that white people like to give us advice, like to give black people advice
Sure.
so often that you decided to write a book with
Right.
all white people's advice.
Right. It was that. Well, if you just comply, if you didn't dress like a thug. So let me ask you something. You can't have these dualities exist. You can't tell me that you're innocent until proven guilty, but then make the same argument that if you dress a certain way or speak a certain way, you should be killed. Those dualities can't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Don't break the law. Well, if I'm innocent until proven guilty, why is a cop administering justice? Those dualities can't exist. If you're telling me we're a nation of rule of law, but you blunt that law to get and turn the other way when it doesn't work out like it's supposed to, then we don't have a rule of law. He shouldn't have dressed this way. He shouldn't have spoke this way. He shouldn't have acted this way. Those are not tantamount to a death sentence, but you're okaying them.
Right, because the book is very tongue-in-cheek.
It is.
It's very like, don't move too fast or you
Right.
might get shot. But then again, don't move too slow because you
Right.
might get shot. And don't listen to this music,
Right.
but then again, don't listen to this music. And it's really one of those things where I guess at the end you say, well, the best way not to get shot is not to be black.
Let me ask you something, an honest question to anybody watching this. Black people have been killed by the police in these manners since before, when they were slaves, they were killed this way, right? Jim Crow, when you had no reason to fear them, they were killed this way. Throughout the 50s, 60s, 70s, they were killed this way, with no one being brought to account. What's the difference now? If you can answer me, what is the difference now? You've always said we were doing something that lined up to your eyes so you could justify it. Because at our core, we're still human beings, and our id screams to us that we're doing something wrong. So you have to justify. He looked at me. He talked to me. He was disrespectful. He didn't say boy. What's different between you saying that to me in the 60s, 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s to you saying to me, he shouldn't have been here. He shouldn't have been disrespectful. He should have called. What's the difference?
I mean, there's more cameras now.
That's it.
So now you could actually see for yourself and make
Right.
your own decision.
And nothing ever changes.
Right, because even the body cams really haven't made much of a difference.
What's the difference between if I see we watched Philando Castile get murdered? We watched it.
Yeah.
We watched Tamir Rice get murdered. We watched it. John Carver we watched it. So the very reasons they murdered us before are the reasons they murder us now, except we get to see it in high def. And I think the only way I knew to assuage that kind of anger and to not be negative was to write a book that lampooned this kind of conscious idea.
Well, you've talked about how Marvel is going to get a lot of black people killed.
Yeah. Luke Cage, a bulletproof nigga? Come on now. They already think we bulletproof. Like, biases exist.
Right. Black Panther, he's bulletproof too. He's got a bulletproof suit on.
The one power that black superheroes need is the ability to make white people believe them.
Believable man.
That right. You can't look. If there is a black suspect in a crime, and they have him on videotape, that prosecutor will walk out and say, "It's all right here in black and white. You see this videotape. He's guilty." And the jury will go, "Well, I see it right there." If there's a cop that does something, they do something different. They go, "We don't know what happened before this video started running." So you get the benefit of shit you can imagine. And the most dangerous thing for black people to live is in white people's imaginations. Not the world that's in front of you. The most dangerous place for black people to live is white people's imaginations.
They imagine something that's worse.
A lot worse.
A lot worse than what it really is.
The real world I can handle. How is it that you can conjure up? You shot a motherfucker in Sacramento, but you talking about Chicago and black on black fight. How the fuck? That's your imagination. You in Chicago? You in Sacramento? How the fuck that guy? What that got to do in any? Why are we mentioning Chicago when you shot him in Milwaukee, or you shot him in Texas, or you shot him in South Carolina?
Right, because you talked about in the book when you talk about black on black crime, but the reality is that people get killed in their neighborhoods, in their vicinities. So if you live in a black neighborhood, you'll probably get shot by a black person. If you live in a trailer home, you'll probably be shot by a white person.
Let me ask you something. Ethnic cleansing is what? People of that region killing other people of that region, right? That's what happens. When you kill the people you're around. Now, they might not be the same religion, but they're your people.
Right.
They're in your ethnic group. If I did something, or if something happened to any member of my family, who would they talk to first? The members of my family. You know why? Because a lot of crime are committed between people who know each other. So how do we get this special designation that we're more inherently more evil, more different? It is a designation they need to give us. I think the most dangerous phrase I've ever seen is not nigger, it's black on black crime.
Why is that?
Because that's a marching order. That means we got to be handled differently. Black people kill. Black neighborhoods are not inherently more dangerous because they have black people in them. They're more dangerous because they have black poor people. Show me a safe poor neighborhood. Black, white.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
That's right. So where did we get this special designation?
Right. Whenever you have a poor neighborhood of any sort, you're going to have drugs. You're going to have violence.
So why did we not any other neighborhood get a special designation? Because you wanted to do to us what you wanted to, and you co-opt us into believing that we're inherently more evil. We're not.
Right. Because I think one of the things I kind of dug in your book was, I guess, the way people are described in courtrooms.
Sure.
Where if it would be a criminal and he had a drinking problem, he'd be an alcoholic. But if it was a cop, he'd be a wine connoisseur.
Right.
I literally had to stop and laugh when you said wine connoisseur.
If you look at professions, cops are pretty violent, right? They have high drug roots, high rates, high alcoholism rates, high rates of domestic abuse per profession. They're the ones we believe. I'm not saying all cops are like that, but per profession, it's pretty high. And they go, well, look at all the things they see. All right, that's okay. I'll buy that. So all the things they see have made them this thing. But those are the people you believe.
Right. I mean, I've always felt that the American criminal system and the police system is very much backwards.
Sure.
You know, I remember I interviewed Shaka Senghor. He was, you know who that is?
Of course.
Okay. So he spent, he murdered somebody and spent a lot of time in prison, wrote a New York Times bestseller afterwards. And he was actually, because I was speaking to him afterwards about 60 Minutes had done a special on German prisons.
Right.
And he was actually involved in that, I found out as we were talking. And it talked about how COs in a German prison had like 3 years of training. And people weren't treated like the enemy in the prisons. Like, people had their own rooms, people had their own television sets, like, and the cops were just, had years of conflict resolution and stuff like that. This is not how American prisons are working.
No. It's
the prisoners are looked at as the enemies, and the COs are looked at as the enemy as well.
Right. And
you have a situation where it's basically a battle in these places. And COs and cops are essentially the same type of profession.
Listen, why is the alternative me saying this? Well, you don't want to be policed. I'll leave it to you. Like, why can't I love my children, but if they did something wrong, I should be able to give them the spirit. Discipline is all about love, right? Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be about love and correction and setting somebody to right. So
right, actually improving the situation.
It actually is.
Right.
If I would guarantee you, and we did this for the book, what was interesting. There are people who are policemen, who are probably not good policemen. They haven't done well, they haven't tested well, they haven't trained well. Case in point, the policeman who murdered Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old boy, in Independence Police Department in Ohio.
He had a toy gun.
The Tim Rice had a toy gun.
Yeah.
That cop was a policeman in Independence, Ohio. He was such a bad policeman that they said that no amount of training could make him a viable cop. He resigned. Months later, he's on the Cleveland Police Department. Mm. He's murdering an unarmed black kid with a toy gun. Just what happened recently in Pittsburgh. The cop that shot Rose in Pittsburgh. January, got fired for being brutal and a liar. Hired. 90 minutes later, after being sworn in, he's killing an unarmed black man. So I believe that white people have an experience with police officers that's different. If you're in a neighborhood that is more affluent, more, singularly athletic, we have this type of people here, your policemen are different. You get the Army Corps of Engineers, people of color get the Marines.
Yeah, I never had problems. I grew up in the suburbs, in a white and Asian neighborhood. I didn't really have problems with the police.
You wouldn't.
I didn't really have problems with the police until I moved to Brooklyn, actually. That's when I started getting thrown against cars and locked up and that type of thing.
Yeah. So I understand you're entitled to your... Here's the thing I never understood about society in general. We are all a sum total of our life's experiences. I understand that. But if you believe your experience are the pervasive experiences, then you're misjudging yourself. You could be a white guy in the suburb and never had to go through that. And that doesn't discount your experience. But make allowance for the fact that I'm not a white guy in the suburb. And that they do look at me differently. We try to make what I think society does in general is they can't do that to him. They wouldn't do that to him. They didn't do it to me. But realistically, we don't have the same optics. Yeah. We don't have the same drive.
Right. I mean, you compared it to I think airline pilots in the book, where
I did.
When a police officer does something fucked up, they say it's a bad apple.
Right.
And it's almost not considered a big deal.
Right.
But if a pilot crashes a plane,
right,
it is considered a big deal.
And I don't care how many. Listen.
And I think you said all planes matter or something like that.
What's funny about that analogy is that there are a few bad apples. Mm-hmm. Those bad apples are generally concentrated in my neighborhood. They don't kick them off the force. Because you need brutal motherfuckers. You just need them with me. I guarantee you, if you look at police records, here's the thing. We don't even want information. We don't even look at police shootings. We don't look at how many people are murdered by the police. You know why? Because we don't want to know. Because then there would be a call to action. Mm-hmm. But I guarantee you, if you look at the records of policemen and police suburban, wealthier neighborhoods, and the records of people that police urban, I guarantee you they have shoddier records. You're not gonna let a dude that police 135th and Avalon police Beverly Hills. You're not gonna do it because you don't want that dude fucking up your reputation with these people.
Have you heard Drake's new album?
I have not.
Okay. There was a Jay-Z line in it where he said, "Y'all killed X and let Zimmerman live. Streets is done."
Yeah.
You heard about this line?
Yeah.
So he's talking about XXXTentacion, who got killed in South Florida.
Sure.
And Zimmerman's still walking around.
Sure.
Number one, what'd you think about the XXX killing?
I think it is a sad case of young men meted out violence on other young men for all the wrong reasons. And I think that it is an example that people will point to, but they won't point to an example of a young man in Santa Fe, that's the high school in Houston, of a young man killing other young men.
Well, when this happened, a lot of people started tagging me on Twitter because I had done an interview with Boosie, and he talked about how he actually had to move out of Baton Rouge,
Right.
because of all the hate he was getting in the city, both from his peers as well as the police.
Sure.
And he started talking about how most rappers get killed in their own city. It's crazy when you say most rappers get killed in their city. I started thinking Bankroll Fresh got killed in Atlanta, Chinx Drugs got killed in Queens. We can go back, Soldier Slim killed in Louisiana, Big L killed in Harlem, the Biggie and Tupac thing, they were traveling at the time, but everybody else, Jam Master Jay was killed in his own studio in Queens.
Right. It's facts, man. It's not, what I'm speaking is facts. Those are the guys who would want to hurt you, those guys who've been looking at you your whole life and building up envy. They build up envy to where they can't do nothing now. They can't stop you from getting money. You don't want to be their friend or associate. You can't come in their crew and get any kind of money. They're too big for you to even try to beef with. So you know what? I'll just take your life.
When the XXXTentacion thing happened, it happened in South Florida, in his hometown.
Right.
And on the same day, Jimmy Wapo got killed in Pittsburgh, in his hometown again.
But that purports to who did Jesus get killed by? The Romans killed him, but who asked for him to die? Who signed his warrant? His people. So there is an argument to be made. A prophet has no honor amongst his own, and that's consistent. And where I kind of not disputing the facts, but we'll say this, that is consistent across all number. When that guy goes to Nevada to a country concert, he was a country music lover, and guns down 59 people. He killed his people, right? They didn't ascribe it to anything other than a mad. It got to be a madman. It wasn't white on white crime. It
wasn't. Yeah, I've never heard it described as white on white crime.
It was a madman. They did. And so there's this narrative that exists. The dude that shot up Orlando, the club in Orlando.
I guess he was a gay guy himself.
He was a gay guy, shot up. So I don't think it's inconsistent that these things happen. Where I draw the line is that they try to make this tenuous connection to color in these levels of violence.
You talked about Kanye.
Sure.
Before. When you saw the interview with the slavery comments, where he said it was a choice.
Sure.
What did you think first?
I thought that was the first black man I've ever seen put an asterisk on slavery.
Yeah.
I've never seen a black man do that before. And I've seen black men have mental problems. I've seen slavery. I mean, asterisk means but Barry Bonds hit all them home runs, but they won this.
Right, but he was on steroids, so it doesn't really count.
Right. Yeah, they won, but it was a strike shortened season. So an asterisk. I've never seen a black man do that before.
Right. It almost reminded me of kind of like the Mel Gibson thing about how the Holocaust didn't really happen.
Right,
it was
but Mel Gibson wasn't Jewish and said that.
Right.
You had a black man. Now, I've seen people tell me that slavery wasn't as bad. They just haven't been people that I liked. Everybody who said it before. Not that I fucked with Kanye because I thought.
Wait, so you've had black people tell you slavery wasn't as bad as they make it out to be?
I've never had anybody do that before.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I've never had. Now, I've never had anybody. You'll never find Ben Carson or people that I'm politically opposed to do that. He put an asterisk next to slavery. When you say shit like, slavery was a choice, well, I guess Harriet Tubman was just a travel agent. Mm-hmm. She wasn't leading people to freedom. She was leading them to the Airbnb.
Right.
And to me, that disqualifies me from ever fucking with you again. You can never do that to me. Look, you can say whatever you want about me. When you make racists happy about the shit you said, fuck you.
You know what I found interesting about this comment was, if you go back to, I think it was Jimmy the Greek.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, sure.
He made a comment on television that black athletes were superior to white athletes because of slavery and because of the slave ships.
Right.
And because physically they had to survive more things and so forth. And he was banned from television after that.
Yeah, but he made an uncomfortable analysis. Okay. You're talking about Jimmy the Greek. Listen, black people, whether people like this or not, were chattel. Right?
What do you mean?
Chattel. They were no more than livestock to a lot of people. Okay. And if I have a livestock, in other words, if I have a livestock that can withstand this and a livestock that is strong, I breed them together to get a result.
Right. And black people were bred during slavery.
So he told the truth.
Like that.
What Kanye said that was different was that black people chose this for 400 years. And I find that for a couple of reasons. The black people that didn't choose this, that jumped into the ocean, that slit their kids' throats, that stabbed themselves to death or committed suicide, are not who were the descendants of people who chose to go through all of this to be here. You tell me how if you don't make a certain choice, you're a slave, but you had cosmetic surgery because you didn't feel good about yourself. How the fuck could you tell me? Right. And then you got on dope. Who's a bigger slave than somebody in this day than somebody on dope?
After your mom died from having cosmetic surgery.
That's right. So don't tell me about what you meant. What came out of your mouth was an insult to millions and millions of people. And if those people hadn't made the choices to be here, your ass wouldn't be saying nothing ignorant as that. And I don't give a listen. When you make white people, white racists feel good about themselves and go, see, fuck you forever. I mean it.
Right. Well, what I found interesting, this is why I brought up the Jimmy the Greek situation, was that Jimmy said what he said. And I felt like what he said was not nearly as offensive as what Kanye said. America
does this. We get rid of the thing that we're looking at as opposed to the thing we should change.
Okay. But my point is that people were upset with Kanye for about a week. People went right back. I mean, his album dropped. Everyone bought it.
Me.
It was right on top of it. I know not you, but in general.
And I would say
people still wear sneakers.
And I venture to say you ain't gonna see a lot of black people do it. I venture to say that. It's not a lot of black people do it. Here's the thing. If you make an album good enough for us, if you make us feel something, we will fuck with you. And that's what he did. The first 3-4 albums, we was like, this dude is on some shit that he's saying shit. That's how bad we need to feel good. If you make an album good enough, black people will make excuses for you, or he ain't been the same since his mama died. Like, black people made excuses for R. Kelly. Well, yeah, I know he peed on that girl.
Chris Brown?
Yeah, we'll make excuses for you.
As long as you have some hit song. Well, I've always said that a hit song will fix anything.
That's right, except this. Now, it'll be, I guarantee you he'll do well, but he don't need us no way. Like, he has a pretty big audience. It's pretty diverse. So he doesn't need us anyway. But for me, there's certain things you can't do. You can do whatever you want to me. I'm in this business. That's the game. That's the price of doing business. Mm-hmm. But there's certain shit you can't do to me and ever fuck with me again. When you make people say racist, even white people who weren't racist went, wow, that's a lot.
That's really racist.
The only people who felt like that were like, oh, well, see, it ain't that bad.
Yeah, I've actually compared it to telling someone who has life in prison that they're staying in prison because it's a choice.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the guns or the barbed wire or the bars. It's you're choosing to be in prison.
Well, you are. You could either stay in prison
or you get shot trying to escape.
That's right.
Right.
So he was right in that there was a choice. But those choices that our ancestors made he is a result of those.
Yeah.
He is a descendant of somebody who chose who chose to be raped, who chose to sell their children.
Right, because West was the name of the master
that owned you, right?
That owned one of your descendants.
Right. And you say that your people, the ones who seeded you life, made a choice. Listen, I think he has made some great music. But I don't know what music you set that to. I don't know.
Last time we talked about the whole Bill Cosby thing.
Sure.
About how he called your radio show and you guys got into it. The show got pulled. The segment got pulled and so forth. Since that time, Bill has been convicted.
Yes.
By a jury.
Sure.
And he's now facing up to 10 years.
Sure.
I believe he's wearing an ankle bracelet.
Sure.
He fired his whole legal team. He cursed out everybody in the courtroom.
Actually be a member of the Trump administration. Listen, I think Bill Cosby did a lot of those. I can't say for everything. And even knowing that I know that, I think that jury, I think that you talk to a district attorney. This thing was settled. Now it's being tried from today's prism, from today's vantage point.
Okay.
And I thought that was patently unfair. And if we're going to do that, I wonder how far we're going to go back. Like, is it 20 years, 30 years, 40 years?
Right, because, Harvey Weinstein is now facing life in prison.
Sure.
He's got 3 new sexual assault charges.
But how far are we going to go back? Are we going to go back to Thomas Jefferson? Like, at what point does our moral outrage?
It should go back to the statute of limitations, right?
That puts a connotation on it. If we're a moral country, ultimately it's this. If Bill Cosby, we have 2 celebrities, right? One black, one white. Both work for NBC. Both accused of sexual assault by dozens of women. Now the black one's going to the big house. The white one's in the White House.
Trump.
So if I were Bill Cosby, I'd start a y'all too amendment. Harvey Weinstein, Donald Trump, y'all too. But stop telling me how dedicated we are to righting a wrong when you allow somebody who did the very things he's being convicted of sit in the White House and you support him. It's disingenuous at best. It's a lie at worst.
Have you ever had a woman accuse you of anything?
Probably, yeah, of course. Let me be clear, never of taking something from somebody.
Yeah.
I didn't ever drug anybody. Lies and bullshit pretty much work as good as anything you take. But yeah, I have been in situations where I've lied to people and told them I wasn't married before, or told them I would do something I didn't later on do. So yeah, I have.
Well, I had TK Kirkland on the show, and he talked about how
he was actually my mentor.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Love TK Kirkland. We talked about how a woman accused him, I guess, of rape.
That ain't never happened to me.
And he actually pressed charges and got her locked up for a couple of years.
I leave town, Vlad. The owner calls me and says, TK, you got to get back here. This young lady said you raped her. Now, I fly back. I talked to the detective. Had nothing to hide. Told him everything happened. Gave him exact times of things went down. And what people don't know, I pressed charges against this woman for lying. Because what people need to know in the state of Georgia, if you get convicted on rape, it's 25 years to life. Damn. That's insane. So I had this person convicted and sent to prison because she lied on me.
I remember that.
Oh, you saw that clip?
Yeah. I remember. Well, I remember when.
Oh, you remember the situation? Okay,
yeah,
right.
I do.
But that rarely happens.
Listen,
there's usually no repercussions. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could accuse your co-host of doing whatever to me, and ultimately, if it's not proven to be true, there's really no repercussions for me.
And that's why it doesn't. It lacks legitimacy. It's not legitimate. If somebody did the most horrible thing in the world in front of you, you would still have to take that stand and say, this man did it. And you would still have to go in front of a trier of fact. And I think it should be the same with your reputation. I think you shouldn't be able to lodge these spurless claims, whether they're spurless or not, without having to prove them. You have to. If somebody murders your family, you'd have to prove that.
Yeah.
Murder and reputation, you don't have to prove. And I think that now all of a sudden it opens the door up for people questioning everything. They'll go, well, you don't believe the victim. I'm not supposed to. I'm supposed to find out what happened.
Right.
My job ain't to believe anybody. It's your job is to prove to me what happened.
Yeah.
And I guess with Bill Cosby, they did. So
they did. He's going to prison.
And he's going to prison. And I think that Donald Trump saying he did it is just akin to, look, Donald Trump and Bill Cosby did the same thing. Bill Cosby said he did it. Donald Trump said he did it. What's the point? What's the difference?
Yeah. You talked about before how you had a baby outside of your marriage.
Sure.
And the boyfriend of the mother ended up killing the child?
Sure. Shook it or...
How old was this child?
9 months.
9 months old. Yeah. Wow. So were you had a relationship with the child and you were...
I was a scared kid. I was trying to keep it under wraps. I was hustling to pay...
Oh, so this was early on.
Yeah, it was early on.
Okay.
And I was hustling to pay child support. And I remember she had come to me and said, if you don't put me on your life insurance, I'm going to tell your wife what happened. Okay. And I decided that I would have one great weekend with my family, and then that Sunday I would tell them what happened, because I wasn't going to make that leap and put them on my life support, my life insurance, and until I got confirmation, until I'd gone to, take the DNA test and all that. And so that was like a Thursday, and then and it was an Easter, which would have been that Sunday. So I decided I would go to church with my family, and I would tell them after church, and get ready to spend my last weekend with my family. And
you figure your wife was going to leave you after that?
Oh, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Okay.
So that was a dumb plan in retrospect, but so Saturday night I'm performing at Maverick Flats in Los Angeles. My friend calls me and says, the baby's in the hospital, he's not going to make it. And I remember praying that God would take this off me all that time. I was like, and instantly I thought two things. My prayer was answered, and it was the worst thing that ever happened.
In the worst possible way, it was answered, yeah.
So I go to the hospital, and I walk past the family, and he is laying there in the bed, and I see him, and I see her and her boyfriend and her family, and they're all staring daggers at me. And I went to him, and I tell him I'm sorry, because I know I would have, or I like to believe that I would have been a father. I was scared. That's no excuse, and I'm not making one. And I don't want anybody to think I am making an excuse. It's just from a clinical perspective, this is what happened. So I go home, and it was the quintessential bittersweet moment. So I go to church with my family. I pull over to a phone booth. I call the hospital, and they ask me who I was, and I tell them that I was his father, and they say he just passed. And it was the same moment that I had planned in my head to tell my wife that I hadn't, that what had happened.
Was the boyfriend charged?
Yeah, he went to jail. Yeah, he went
a long time?
Not long enough.
Not long enough.
He's out, so he killed a kid. He's here.
Killed your kid?
Yeah, he did.
Did you feel a sense of revenge that you needed to have?
I feel a lot of things.
Yeah. Very sad, man. What was this? And you already had kids at this point.
I did, but it wasn't. Listen, I felt that I didn't have the right to feel revenge because I wasn't in his life, and I felt that somebody robbed me of something, and I feel right now that it's something I think about. Every time something good happens to me, I think about that.
Think about that.
Sure.
How did your wife take that whole thing?
Well, my wife didn't know about that till years later, where...
Oh, okay. You kept it quiet.
Yeah, because, again, I was a coward. I'm not disputing that. So, years later, the girl I had the baby with, couldn't take it. So a couple years later, I just told my wife. And back then, you could go to the gate without buying a ticket. It was before 9/11. So you could just meet people at the gate. Remember that? So my family would always meet me at the gate. So I had told my wife months earlier, I get off the plane, my wife is there. The girl I had the baby by is at the airport. And she sees me and I see her and she sees my wife. And I don't know what was on her mind, but I got the sense. She was like, oh, I got you now. So when we walked off, I walked up to her, my wife. I said, this is the girl I had the baby by. And my wife said, I'm sorry for your loss.
That was that.
It wasn't, well, then years later, it's a long story, because it never, so then years later, the girl, you know, it jammed her up too, like it did me, but I wasn't the mother, and I wasn't with her with him every day, and she started asking for money. She needed some money, and I told her my wife would have to take care of it, because I couldn't. So her and my wife talked, and my wife started giving her money. Now, here's the horrible thing about that.
So your wife was giving her money years later after the fact. Okay.
And so the condition was that she could never ask me. My wife would take care of it. So my wife took it from my allowance that I never have gotten back. So I don't know if she's still giving it to her or not.
Okay.
But I know that I don't get that money anymore.
She took a chunk out of the out of the pile.
And I can't go, hey, are you still? I can't.
Can't do that. So, well, you said when you were 13, you were dating a 23-year-old?
I don't know if I dated her. I knocked her off.
Is that when you lost your virginity?
No, I lost. First off, to lose your virginity means that you wanted it. Now, I lost my virginity at 11. But I thought, and there was this girl lived down the street to me, and I thought that, you know, I grew up in the neighborhood. Nobody talked about, your parents didn't talk about anything. Everything you learn from cats in the streets. So this young girl, she's come around. She used to drive a car, and I was 13 years old. I had gotten some, so I used to talk stuff to her. Oh, girl, I'll tear it up and all that kind of stuff. So one day, she took me home and gave me some. I was like, oh, wow, this is not, and sexually, it was just like, weird, because she would do stuff. I would like, I'm 13. I don't know what that is, and so it was my first experience with somebody who could drive and had a driver's license. But I never thought like I was like abused. I thought, because when she would come to pick me up, all the dudes would be like, "You getting that?" I'd be like, "Yeah." And then I get in the car. I don't want to. Right. I want to go home.
Well, I'd interviewed D. Ray Davis, and he said he lost his virginity at 11 to two ugly, horrible 13-year-old women. Yeah. It was, I guess, friends of his mother.
13-year-old women?
30-year-old women.
Oh, 30, yeah. Okay.
He was 11.
Yeah.
My mother's friends, my mother was involved in a lot of stuff, but I've had older women who thought I wasn't being parented correctly, slightly try to take advantage of me, and not slightly, have taken advantage of me.
Well, you lost your virginity to two 30-year-olds?
Yeah.
The same time?
Yeah, two ugly, horrible-looking women.
And you were?
What was I?
You were how old?
11.
And I remember when he was describing it, I kind of laughed because he was doing it in a comedic type of way, and people just crucified me for laughing.
Yeah, I don't have that thing where I go, I never felt like, and don't now to this day, have the same assessment of people, but they're allowed to kind of feel what they do about it. But I was a cat talking shit. She took me up on the offer.
There you go.
And I wanted to get out of it.
As a comedian, right, it's interesting to me how, you know, comedy is a very integral part of society.
Sure.
It always has been, right? And when you look at a snapshot of society, you could say that, well, comedy has no rules. You could say whatever you want. But the type of comedy that was done in the 80s, for example, like Eddie Murphy,
sure,
the faggot-ass faggot
right,
type stuff, you can't really say that today.
Sure, you can.
Remember how Tracy Morgan said that if his son was gay, he would kill him or something like that?
Tracy Morgan is an example of society trying to bring us to heal. And I think there has to be a place where you go to hear something profane and profound that isn't. No, listen, when I do a show, I am doing that show for those people who paid to see that, right? So if you tape that show and show it to somebody who wasn't there, they don't see the whole night, they don't see what happened, it's what? Out of context.
Right.
I'm not going to explain a joke I told to somebody else to you. You get it or don't get it. And literally, fuck you if you can't take a joke. I just don't. I don't subscribe to those societal norms because I know you don't. What you want is a trophy and a notch on your belt, as opposed to making society better. And comedy has always made society better. Mark Twain, from Mark Twain to Lenny Bruce to Dick Gregory, the society has always held a mirror up. Comedy has always held a mirror up to society, and they haven't like. It's like it's funny now. It's like a fat dude looking in the mirror and being mad at the mirror because he's fat.
Right, because I had Lavelle Crawford on my show. He talked about how his dad was gay.
I didn't know that.
Right. It's out there now. So.
Right.
And, you know, he kind of talked about being scared of the gay mafia, and he was saying how...
Try pussy for first years. Try pussy out. Young ladies, try a dick out. You're going to find a good dick out there. Try one before your ass start wanting to, you know, eat a pussy. I don't even know how women want to be gay, because, I mean, I can't be gay because, I love hot dogs, but I eat it in the middle.
You eat it in the middle.
I never eat it. I never go straight in. I eat it like a sandwich because I don't want. But I'm not being mean to homosexuality. Because they like I said, that mafia out there. This world they didn't make this politically correct shit where you start accepting things that ain't acceptable. We haven't learned to live with each other as people.
Yeah.
Now you want to throw this shit on top of it. So I got to look at this guy over here switching his ass, wearing lipstick and shit, and I got to go through that shit. I mean, back in the day, you know, homosexuals gay, we laughed about it, we moved on. They was comfortable, they was strong enough to, if you gay, you get fucked with just like anybody else.
And the backlash was intense.
I don't care.
He had to make a statement and somewhat apologize and so forth.
Why would I apologize to you for telling a joke?
That's how I look at it.
I'm not going. I remember when I did this thing about Caitlyn Jenner and everybody got mad at me. Listen, I don't really give a shit about you and what you think is funny. You could say, well, you ain't funny no way. Well, you know what? Maybe, but I've been doing okay for 30 years.
Yeah.
Your assessment of what you think of me is not my business. I'm gonna do comedy the way I do it until people don't pay me to do it anymore.
Pretty much. As long as people are paying
I would tell you to suck my dick, but you're gay, and that would be weird. So I don't care. I care that I'm a natural human being, and I naturally would have, but I'm not gonna let you bully me into, like, we do this thing on our radio show, and there were two guys originally. They ran on the boys track team in the summer, or in the spring, and because Connecticut, you could transition. So then they ran against the girls later on, and they kicked their ass. But they were allowed to take performance-enhancing drugs. They were allowed to take hormones, because if you're transitioning, motherfucker, that's not transitioning, that's doping.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that is.
Yeah.
I'm trying to transition to a woman. Well, I'm trying to transition to a star linebacker. If I was Barry Bonds, I'd change my name to Bonita and get my titles back.
Right.
There's a Loretta Conseco out here for you. That's hilarious to me and true. And fuck you if you don't think it is.
Yeah.
Find somebody that makes you feel better about what you do. I don't think that it's my job to tell you what you think of you. It's my job to tell you what I think of you.
Well, in the book, you talked about the most hated black people in America. It started with OJ.
Yep.
Then it went to Obama.
Yep.
And now it's at...
It is at Colin Kaepernick.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Everyone hated OJ because he got off with killing a white woman.
Right. And everybody hated Barack Obama because he was a reflection of the promise America had always held out. America said if you work hard, you could be anything you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And they hated him for it. Nobody works harder than poor people. You know what they get to be? There tomorrow. Colin Kaepernick led a violent protest, a peaceful protest against America and their injustice. And he is a pariah. Robert E. Lee led a violent one, and he gets statues. Have you ever noticed whenever somebody who didn't do it before does something different? Like the first black anything, the first woman anything, the first gay anything gets what? Death threats.
Crucified.
Not crucified. I threaten to kill you.
Right.
I don't care if it's hitting home runs. I don't care if it's landing on the moon.
Right.
I don't care if it's the first black person who went to a school. If you do something that breaks the paradigm of what I think is normal, I want you to die.
Right. I mean, they killed Martin Luther King.
Sure.
They killed Malcolm X.
Sure. So it ain't even that. How you gonna want to kill Hank Aaron? All he did was hit home runs. How you gonna want to kill a president? All he did was be a reflection of the very thing you said he should be. Be excellent. You got to die for following the rules.
Right. Well, you talked about the in the book. You talked about Michelle Obama's statements about living in a house built by slaves.
Right. And Bill O'Reilly talked about how it wasn't built by slaves.
Right. I actually try to whitewash it, I guess.
Yeah. But didn't they always? They talked about. I remember last year. They said they found Sally Hemings, who was Thomas Jefferson's lover. They found her apartment. No, you found her slave quarters, and she wasn't his lover. He wasn't her lover.
But she was raped.
She was raped over and over again. But that makes you feel better. Whether you like this or not, Thomas Jefferson is a rapist, and you have him on your money and your high schools and your bridges. Thomas Jefferson raped people.
Have you ever thought about, because I think about this sometimes. You have children. Even if you consider, if you hate your baby mother,
right.
If you figure she's beneath you, or
right.
whatever other evil thoughts you have towards this woman or her race or whatever else.
But if I got a baby from her, she probably was beneath me at some point, physically.
Okay.
So, or on top, or something. There was some way we connected.
But the baby comes out. And this baby is half you, whether you want to admit it or
right.
not. At what point do you kind of say this whole concept of slavery and inferior races and everything else like that is kind of out the window because now I have this child that is half me? Like, you know what I'm saying? At what point does the parental instinct start
You're asking me something that is an interesting question, and I'll answer it this way. At the point where I believe I had sex with an anomaly, that I had sex with something that was beneath me. I go to Tijuana, they have a show where a lady has sex with a burro. Right. And that's about what you have to believe
right.
the offspring of that
right. but
isn't human.
But the lady doesn't get pregnant afterwards. That's the big difference.
But at one point
you see what I'm saying? Now, if a half donkey child comes out, right. then you might look at that original donkey a little bit differently. Right?
I think that you had to tell yourself a story that person was a little more than an animal. You had to. You couldn't believe. If you wrote the rules and said, this is chattel, my property, I don't have to respect it.
Right.
And so the offspring of that, the human part of you makes you go, I won't beat it as bad as I do the other people. Or I'll put it in the house. Because the human part of you does that. The part of your ear but the part of you that believes you're superior doesn't have a problem with it. The same thing that allows you to take something she don't want to give you is the same thing that allows the offspring of that to be okay.
You're in this 1600, 1700 situation where you have these slaves and you're being told that they're not as intelligent as you. They're not truly human. They can't read. They can't write and so forth. But you spend time with them every day. And you start to realize that they're just humans just like you. Some of them are probably smarter than you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Right. Some of them are more clever than you are and so forth. At what point do you kind of say, all this is bullshit?
You can say whatever you want to say.
These are regular human beings just like me.
But the law and the rules that were written couldn't let you believe that. Listen.
But you start to question as a human being, though.
You as an individual human being.
Yeah.
Not as a society.
Okay.
As an individual human being. There were people who always bucked against slavery, who fought it. They lost every time in court.
Okay.
But
and of course the North was, slavery was
even
illegal.
the North. That was, the problem with American history is that now we have Google. But I'll say this: any human being that believes that the way that they were born entitles them to a bigger segment of humanity than somebody else who was born in a different place is already so flawed. That most people that feel like that will never be reached. And most people that feel like that, who are never reached, are now populating this country.
I read an interesting passage in a book, and it said, it kind of gave me a new perspective on things. And it said, walk into a bank, okay? And if your loan officer, who you get, matched up with, is wearing a dark blue pinstripe suit, and as you're asking him financial questions, he answers them and so forth, and you have a certain level of respect and understanding for that person. Keep that in mind. Now, take the exact same situation and put that man in an orange suit. Would you take that man as seriously and take his advice as seriously as you would in the man in the dark blue suit? And most people will say probably not.
Right.
But it's just the color of a suit. It has absolutely no significance apart from society tells you that a dark blue suit is more serious than an orange suit.
But imagine if you couldn't change the suit.
You're stuck in that orange suit.
Imagine if it was your skin.
Right. And that's the analogy
right.
to what I'm trying to say here.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Imagine you don't get to play by different rules. That I see you and that I already have an assessment of you before I know who you are. That is the game we play. And so, look, you saw the number. 50% of Americans believe that Donald Trump is a racist. Mm-hmm. So that means that the other 50 are bullshitters. Now, you could say he's a racist, but he works. Or he's a racist, but he's doing what I want him to do. Don't pretend, because the other 50% are the worst kind of people. And I'll tell you why. Because they have to lie to themselves, like I had to do with my other situation, to make shit right. They got to lie.
Lie to themselves.
White men don't get to tell you who's racist. White women don't get to tell you who's racist.
Right, and you've talked about that, about how, I guess, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but essentially you're saying that black people can't be racist because they don't have the power to go along with their ideology.
Somebody called me racist. I'm like, when did I ever oppress you or deny you a loan or deny you right to vote? I make you uncomfortable. But so does gas. So does a cramp. A cramp ain't racist. Gas ain't racist. It makes you uncomfortable. I can't make a system up that denies you loans or humanity or makes sentencing harsher or makes police harsher. White folks being uncomfortable, they think that's racism. They ain't felt it yet. You can't know what that's like. I can't deny you humanity. I can't right now, my children could be slain in the streets and society would say, why didn't he or why didn't she? I can't do that. We're not the same because you made us not that way and you don't want us to be the same.
In the book, you talked about how being broke and white is like being a cop without a gun.
Yeah.
A mall cop.
Yeah.
Which once again, I had to stop.
I feel the worst for black white people because they got the uniform. Broke white people. They don't
have the gun though.
They don't have that. They don't have the respect. Broke white people are not even they're not even respected by other white people. Yeah. Niggas understand them. If you broke and white in America, you know what that means? You blew a 400-year head start.
Right, but most white people are not very well off in America.
No, but they, you know what they do have?
What's that?
We don't have to argue semantics. We can argue specifics. A white high school educated man does better financially than a black college educated man. We don't have to dispute it. We can look it up. We'll see it.
That's the facts.
So just being white gives you an advantage that 4 years of college doesn't give me. If you white in America, the worst you'd ever be is a manager at some shitty store.
Okay.
That's it. That's it. If you broke and white and you working with me and punching it just like me, you failed.
Okay. But most people on welfare are white.
Yes. Yes.
Just numbers wise.
Yes, just
but
numbers wise.
there's also more white people in America, obviously.
So. Yeah. But that means that most white people are white. But conjure up on welfare are white. Conjure up in your mind, close your eyes, and conjure up the image of the welfare recipient. Do you see a white person?
Most people see a black person.
That's right.
Right, because that's the imagery
that's
presented.
Right. With your broke ass. Talking on... That's what I don't get.
Right, no, because in the book, you said something interesting, and you said that a black neighborhood is considered a bad neighborhood.
Sure.
And I started thinking about it. I started thinking about, like, what some of my relatives have said, my Russian relatives, is something called a chorny rayon, which means a black neighborhood. And there's a stigma of it being a bad neighborhood. And I'm like, shit, I grew up with these types of things being said around me.
But so as a listen,
but
a neighborhood,
so is America, yeah.
A neighborhood isn't bad because it's black. A neighborhood is bad because it's poor.
Yeah.
Now I don't care what you think. Martin Luther King's rough. Go to South Boston. Go to a neighborhood with poor white people.
Yeah, go to a trailer park.
Absolutely.
Go to any trailer park in America. See how safe it is.
That's right. So stop telling me, but what they have this notion of, and listen, I'm not telling you for one instant that black people are better. What I am telling you is that we're not worse.
Right.
We're you.
Well, you said Kim Kardashian's meeting with Trump to discuss prison reform makes sense. Who screwed more black dudes than her?
Absolutely.
And the prison system.
Absolutely. That's a funny joke. And true.
That whole thing kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
It did.
The whole, I believe it's Alice Johnson.
Yeah.
We actually looked her up. The imagery is interesting because she's a grandmother and so forth. But when we actually looked her up and looked up the case, it kind of seemed like she kind of did it. She kind of seemed like this was the kingpin in this area that was, I guess she had worked at FedEx and used some of the same thing to move drugs and so forth. This was not a political prisoner. No. This was not, you know what I'm saying? Like, this was not Nelson Mandela. Like,
this was the prisoner that's a reality store liked and the cause they could go behind that another reality star was sparked to. Listen, I think people are over-sentenced. And I think she's an example of that. Okay. I think that they are hard. Virtually every crime committed in the United States of America, 2-to-1, black to white.
Okay.
Up until 2008, the majority of the gangs in the country were white.
Right.
What you tell me is that we're inherently more criminal. 70-some% of the people arrested in this country, 70-some% of the people arrested in this country are white. Most of the people that go to jail are black. And Alice Johnson, I'm glad she's out. But the way the Trump administration and several other administrations have acted will make millions more Alice Johnsons.
Right. I mean, you had the Rockefeller laws.
Sure.
Where crack and cocaine would have massively different sentencing. Even though they're essentially the same thing.
You don't,
except where they're distributed.
Look at Hawthorne and Lawndale in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Hawthorne black, Lawndale white.
Okay.
Powder here, crack here.
Yeah.
Look at the sentencing disparities. Look at the policing disparities. So I never had to go to a professor to tell me that. I went to life in the streets. So it's interesting.
You said in our last interview that the black church is one of the gayest places.
It is the gayest place. It is. I think that most, if you look at and my people always get mad at me when I say this.
Here it comes.
If you look at the population of the black church, it's black women, the largest, the children that have to go with them.
Right, get dragged along.
That they gotta go. And black dudes. Now, it's 3 or 4 kinds of black dudes. It's black dudes that have lived their life so foul that they're trying to get their life together.
Right, trying to get into heaven.
It's black dudes that gotta go with their woman because they done fucked up.
Okay.
And it's black dudes who like dudes and are trying to play the love of dick out of their heart.
Okay. The I ain't gay no more guy.
Right.
Was,
I've been delivered. Them type dudes.
I've been delivered.
Right. Well, I'm on my knees anyway. So.
Well, Magic Johnson just did an interview talking about his son's sexuality.
Sure.
If you had a son that was extremely feminine like that, would that be something you think you could deal with?
Listen, I could deal with anything.
Yeah.
I love my children. I love them unconditionally. You can love dudes and not act like a broad, right?
Right, because he really wears dresses.
Hey, man, I get it. You can love dudes, but you ain't a broad. You're a girl. You're a man.
Right.
So don't. And if you listen, we live in an America that believes that it's more. America accepts the reality that a man is trapped in a woman's body than to believe that all black people are inherently criminal. You can like dudes, or you could like people of the same sex. What you need a fucking purse to do that for? You ain't doing that. I get it. I love you anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm not buying you a Fendi bag, nigga. I'm not.
Right. Because
you're not a girl. You're a man who likes men. I get it.
I mean, you talk about in interviews how your son has Asperger's.
Right.
And I guess he wanted to hire some hookers.
He does hire hookers.
He does hire hookers.
Yes.
And you gave him the money for that.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Was that the son who I just met?
Yes.
Okay.
You saw him. He probably going to hire a hoe right now.
He's on his way to the host role?
I can't. My son told me he was going to kill himself.
Why?
Because he was such an outcast from society. That's why he started working with me on the radio. He came to me and said, Dad, I don't want to be here anymore. I hired him on the radio. Look, whatever you got to do to make sure you here, as long as you ain't hurt nobody else, I'm a do.
You know, I honestly, when I met him, if you didn't tell me, if I didn't know ahead of time that he had this condition, I wouldn't have
talked to him 10 more minutes, you'd have got it.
I didn't spend enough time with him yet.
No, you didn't. I love my son. And you know what? Here's the truth. If you have dudes who don't get enough pussy kill people, like they shoot schools.
I agree.
Shit.
Usually when you see these school shooters,
they're
not like the handsomest of individuals. Right. They're not the ladies' man that you see.
No. And he's a handsome cat. He just don't know how to talk. And let me tell you something. When he's having a bad day, we stay at the Holiday Inn.
You leave the house.
Oh, are you crazy? I'd rather him get a hoe than shoot at my house. Come on now.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly believe, like, when you look at the Catholic Church and you see the type of shit that goes on there, I think it's sexual repression.
All of it. America. Listen, if you look at race in this country,
right,
a lot of white dudes are scared that they women is going to like black dick. That's really true.
Yeah.
Like, when one of the things that would happen when they would be lynched, what they do? Cut their dicks off.
Right.
Because look at the NBA. Look at the fucking NFL. When you sign a big contract, you get a couple white women to go with it. That's just the way it goes.
Is that the way it goes?
Absolutely.
Lonzo Ball got a
absolutely
white girl pregnant. Derrick Rose. I mean.
So I'm not. There's the whole sex repression things doesn't just stop. There's this whole notion that if I'm this, I'm a predator. If I'm this, I'm sexually inadequate. Right,
because I've interviewed male porn stars before. I mean, we don't really do it anymore, but
I'm not sitting in the same chair.
No. This is your chair. But it's interesting when I look at the comments afterwards, people like, look how calm and happy this man is. This man gets as much sex as he wants. He's not angry. He's not sad. He's calm. He's happy. You know, he's going to get some sex right after this. Like, he's not tripping. I think that's a cause of a lot of the problems.
If I believe that you're less than me, and I believe something I want wants you, that would set the world off balance. If I believe that I'm superior to you, but something I want wants you, that sets the world out of balance.
So if you're saying when white women are attracted to black men, white men have a problem because they feel that black men are beneath them, and yet this woman that they desire wants them more than...
That is so apropos, I couldn't have said it any better.
Okay.
And I think it's the cause of a lot of shit. It really is.
What do you think of the whole Terry Crews thing?
I think it's hard for me to think that a dude with all those muscles can't tell an agent to not touch his ass.
His ass or his dick?
Whatever.
Whatever he touched.
I just do. I don't understand. I think that now everybody's so into this notion that it happened to me too. Hey, motherfucker, God gave you muscles so you could say no and mean it.
What do you mean it happened to you too?
Like when he went, I could understand people being in certain situations because there's nothing you could do about it.
Right. I remember this one time I was in Israel and this gay guy walked up to me and started biting on my shirt. And I just turned around and walked away. I was kind of nervous. I was in a foreign environment. I was in a foreign country.
Right.
I didn't know who his homies were or how deep he was.
Right.
Maybe some people would have punched him or whatever else. I was really bothered by it.
But imagine, I get it.
But I just walked away.
Okay. But imagine being a guy, your agent works for you. He gets 10% of your money.
Well, that wasn't his actual agent.
I don't care what it was. Like,
this
the
was,
agency.
I believe, the president of a major company.
Listen, I've had agents.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
You can't touch my dick if I pay you.
Right.
Because I can get another you.
Right.
Now, it's a whole lot of things, and you can't touch my dick in front of my wife if I pay you. That's me.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just say, hey, motherfucker, I don't care what people think of me. You ain't doing this to me. That's where I come from. Now, I can't say I've never been in this spot. I ain't done no Old Spice commercial. I ain't been in this spit. But it's shit you ain't gonna never do to me.
Right, because I think 50 compared it to the Will Smith incident. Remember when the guy tried to kiss him? Will Smith just smacked him?
Yeah.
Right there on the red carpet?
I ain't feeling ready to let that happen. Now, I think that people get, oh, you know what happened? I get it. You pay this dude or that agency to work for you. They can't make money unless they. It's funny because athletes, porn stars, and entertainers are the only people that pay people to get them work. So they all pimp like they. Like, I pay you to get me work.
Right.
I'm not going to pay you to get me work, and you touch the goods too, motherfucker. Hang on. I'm not going to give you 10% of my proceeds from this shit, and you touch my dick. That can't happen.
So you've never had, I mean, being in Hollywood, doing movies, you've never had a gay man?
I'm not sexy enough for that.
You're not sexy enough?
Not.
You with your...
I never had that.
With your tattoos and your muscles out right now and all that?
I like it, but no. I just...
The Illuminati never invited you to the...
Low-key, I feel like...
To the blood festival to make your career?
Low-key, I feel like I'm inferior. You don't want to... No. You know, here's my problem. I've always had to talk women in the sex with me, so I imagine it would have to be the same way with a gay dude. Like, I have to convince them that it won't be as bad as they think it is. And I just don't have the energy for that.
You know, in the book, you talked about music is very important when you get
Sure.
pulled over by the police.
Sure.
You could play Justin Timberlake, but not Timberland.
Right. I made this juxtaposition between, and it was based on Jordan Davis, who was shot because in Florida, because they said he was playing. Look, music, hair, skin, tattoos, dress are apparently confrontational to people. Like, I want to open a less threatening nigga clothing store. But I think there are all these ideas, and I said this earlier, the worst place for black people to live is in white America's imagination. Music is that way. Clothing is that way. Names are that way. Cars are that way. Neighborhoods are that way. Because they all mean something. They all are triggers.
Right.
I said trigger, not nigger. That's the same thing.
Right, because you said in your book that you have to look unique so you don't match any description.
Sure.
Right. Flavor Flav never got arrested for nothing.
What I tried to do in the book was to make it so ironic and so outlandish that people would get the point. And the overall point is that if you believe something of somebody that and you believe that they are a thing, sooner or later, if you watch them long enough, they're going to edify your position. Mm-hmm. And I want people to change their vantage point and the things that trigger them. I think I can't be as bad as you think I am. I can't be. If you look at all the experiences that you had, I would say this: most people, and I said this earlier, most black people or people of color have had a negative experience with the police or or society at large. Most white people can't say that. What they have is heard about some shit, and then that becomes their vantage point.
Yeah. Well, you said that a white person could have a black friend and still be racist.
Yeah. Strom Thurmond had black kids, put them through college, still was racist. So did Thomas Jefferson.
I mean, did Thomas Jefferson actually acknowledge those kids, or?
Yeah. Well, finally, because I guess now the Jefferson Society sector. Captain Kirk fucked every bitch in the galaxy. He ain't gonna let him come home with him.
Right. Right. Didn't see any green women on the
Right,
Star
when you
Trek
said
Enterprise.
boldly go another man before, that was in the alien's ass. But that's not.
I think he was actually butt fucking the aliens.
I think, of course.
Didn't want to know half human babies out there.
Listen, I don't know what no means in your language. How do you say astroglide in Martian? I don't know.
I mean, but do you really believe that a racist could really have a black person that they really respect and still feel that way about the entire race?
Yes.
Or do you think that they may just have a coworker or
Yes.
something of that sort?
I believe that people are capable of compartmentalizing.
Okay.
Yes.
I see where you're going with this.
Yes, I do. Not only do I believe it, it's borne out. It's true.
Yeah, I don't know, though. I mean, at a certain point, I kind of feel like you have an idea. You have what society has fed you about a group of people. But at the point where you start developing these relationships, it kind of has to start crumbling down a little bit.
No.
No?
I think you can love an individual and hate where they're from and suspend reality. I think we're all capable of doing that. And I think we'll only get better as a society if we accept that certain things are a reality and then certain things are not. And I just think we're not adult enough to respect that that's a kind of truth.
You were on the Kings of Comedy
Sure.
tour. Was that the most successful comedy tour ever?
It was at that point, yes.
At that point?
Yes.
Okay. You and Steve Harvey are friends.
Yes. He's my friend.
Still are friends.
Yes.
He went to go see Donald Trump.
Right.
You said some words about it.
I said some words about Donald Trump, but not about Steve.
You didn't.
I can't question Steve's motive for going to see him. I think that Steve is the kind of guy that believes that something good can come out of the visit. And Donald Trump is the kind of guy. Listen, Steve is no different than Kim Jong-un. They're all photo opportunities.
So you think that was a photo op?
Was it?
Wasn't like Steve wasn't already famous and rich and.
I'm not talking about for Steve. I'm talking about for Trump.
For Trump. Well, for Trump, it was definitely a photo op.
That's what that.
Yeah. Remember during when he was running, he's like, "Oh, look at my African American right there."
Right. So I never ascribed a motive to Steve or not. We just had this pomp and circumstance for you to go see Kim Jong-un, and all you did was take pictures. And right now, he's enhanced his nuclear capacity.
That's what they say.
That's right. So that's what they say, and nobody refutes it or affirms it. So what was that? I went to North Korea, and all I got was this T-shirt and a picture. So I think it's not. It was never about Steve. It's what Trump uses people of color for optics.
Okay. So if Trump called you and asked for a meeting, you would say no.
What for? What? What could I give him? What do I know?
Right.
I know how to drink and talk shit, and what do I know how to do?
Well, Kathy Griffin, she called Kevin Hart a pussy for not talking about Trump.
I think Kevin Hart is a very successful, talented cat who understands who he is and what he brings to the party, and stays in his sweet spot. So I don't know that I would call him a coward. I think that he is a cat that knows what he believes and edifies his position.
Do you think that once you reach a certain level that you can't speak your mind anymore?
I think that I'll always speak my mind.
You.
So I can't ascribe somebody else's motives. I think, and I can't call them what. Listen, I believe what I believe, and I believe whether the police is there or whether they ain't. So I can't kind of crucify somebody for not having my kind of more.
Fair enough.
It is.
You've talked about the double standard between the Texas school shooting and the TK murder case.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at what you said. It was like a Twitter post.
Yeah.
So it had TK, 17 years old, state Texas, crime, 2 capital murders, 1 aggravated robbery,
Sure.
facing the death penalty.
Right.
On the other side, you had Demetrius Pagurtzis,
Yeah.
also 17, state of Texas, capital murder of 10 people, 13 injured, aggravated assault on a public servant, no death penalty, parole in 40 years.
Right. I think that there is a way that society is interesting. Is society or police apparently are more afraid of a black man that they imagine has a gun than they are of a white dude who's demonstrated he had one.
Okay.
How is it that Stephen Clark can get shot for thinking that a gun was a phone, but you have mass murderers that get arrested when you know they have a gun? And I think why is it that Pascagoula, what was it? I can't even pronounce his name.
Demetrius Pagurtzis.
Demetrius Pagurtzis walked around in Texas with a black trench coat on.
Mm-hmm.
In high school with a black trench coat on, and that wasn't suspicious. But 2 black dudes in Starbucks are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and I said this earlier, the most dangerous place for black people to live is not in the suburbs, it's in white people's minds.
Do you think that in the future, I mean, with all the intermixing that's happening, like I remember when I first started dating black women in the...
Me too!
You too. This was in the early 90s.
Yeah, have a little bit of this.
Go ahead, pour me up. Like, I was going to school at UC Berkeley, which is considered
damn, you are a bright dude.
Right. So, which is considered a very liberal place. This is like the epicenter of the hippie movement and everything else like that.
Sure.
Very multiracial. Oakland is right there and so forth. And when I started dating this girl in 92, 2, was it? And we would walk around holding hands. It was a bit of a spectacle.
Sure.
People tapped their friends on the shoulder and pointed at us. People turned around and we walked by and so forth. It was a thing. These days, interracial couples are not really a big deal.
I don't think that's
It's not very uncommon.
commonality has nothing to do with societal the societal optics. I'll say this, that I'm 54 years old.
Okay.
I fucked up a lot. I've never had a white mistress.
Never.
Even my mistresses have been black.
Have you ever had sex with a white woman?
That's a different, no. I've never.
Next question.
What are you talking about? No, I've never. No, I haven't. But, and not because.
Wait, you've never had sex with a white woman
and
in life?
No.
Really?
And not because I didn't want to. It's just it never came up.
Okay.
It's not because I went, oh, I'm. It just never came up.
There's some bad white girls these days, man.
Man,
with ass and everything. I don't know where they came from.
But I'll tell you this. I believe that you should be attracted to who you're attracted to and do your thing. I just believe that people don't believe that. If they did, they wouldn't say and do the things they do. As evolved as I think I am, there's a reason that's never happened. So I can't say if I'm going to fuck up, I might as well fuck up on all sides of the quadrant. But I think that society has this notion of what they'll say and do, and it's just not true.
But I guess my point is, do you think that at some point, you know, when you and I are both gone, you know, 100 years in the future, 200 years in the future, whatever, where the color of your skin really just does not matter all that much.
I think
the world would be so beige as a whole. With all the
that's why America's afraid. America's afraid because people are finding other people. They're loving other people. They're doing things with other people. And what happens to me if you didn't? And I didn't write this, but they used to believe that you had one drop of black blood in you. Yeah. That you were black.
Right.
You could have.
There was the famous case.
Drescott.
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Where the guy was sitting in a train because you can't,
Drescott.
you know, he goes, I'm 14th.
Yeah.
I'm like what, 5'6" white or something. He's like, well, you're not white enough, and that's the case you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
So they believe that. So if I'm with you, and then we have a baby, and then our babies have another baby, then my blood is always within you.
Yeah.
So if you have one drop of black blood in you, pretty soon, in 30, 40 years, nobody is going to be Aryan. Nobody's going to be all black. But you're closer to me than to an Aryan.
Right, because in general, the black gene is more dominant.
It is.
With the children.
The black gene is more dominant with the children.
Yeah.
But not in in the legal system, the educational system. It's only more dominant with children in the birth canal. But apparently, and I think that people are afraid of that. I think that when you look at what's happening when you put migrant kids in cages, the white birth rates, for the first time in America, the death rates are higher than the birth rates for white people.
Really?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. People of color. So instead of trying to fuck over poor people, y'all need to get to fucking. That's
that's what it is.
Death rates are higher than birth rates. I don't do math very well, but I get it.
Right, because in the book you've also talked about the disadvantages of having a quote unquote black name.
Yeah. There was a survey conducted by potential employers. It said the more ethnic or urban a name sounds, the less likely they'll even consider employing it. Even in schooling, educationally, when a person comes from a certain socioeconomic background, has a certain name, they're perceived a certain way and treated accordingly. And the reason, even the whole reason I wrote the book is because we can't accomplish anything unless white people who are the people who society tends to listen to participate. Who's in charge? 76% of our teachers are what? White women. Most of our corporate officers are what? White dudes. Most of our political leaders are what? white guys. Most of our judges are what?
Right. I mean, I think we had put a story up. There was some area in, I think, Georgia where every political office was held by a black woman. It was like the judge.
Yeah, but it's a small,
but it was considered such
town.
an anomaly. It was like,
Right.
oh, but if it was all white women, it wouldn't even make the news.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it's such a small town. I think they got 17 people in it, and half of them. But it's just the reason we have to have this conversation, and to your point, the reason I wrote the book is because I want people to see themselves. Look, nothing matters until it matters to everybody.
In the book, you also said that white people didn't build America; they supervised the building of America.
They didn't.
They got the Chinese do the railroads.
Irish dug the tunnels.
Right. They waited for them to sober up.
Right.
That's what you said.
This is what the funny thing about this country is America has always needed people who were willing to be exploited for the betterment of their people. We always needed them. Now we took slaves, but after that we had the Chinese, the Irish, the Italians.
Right.
Now Italians are white, so you can't really say the same thing. But
well, they're considered white now, but back then
they weren't.
They weren't.
They weren't.
I remember, there were signs called "No Irish Need Apply."
Right. What did Irish become? Policemen and firemen.
Well, yeah, I remember studying this in school. Like they basically got together and said, "This is some bullshit. The only way we're going to get around this is to actually hold political office."
That's right.
And public office. So when you see the
and what did the Irish do?
Right. Well, for example, like the stereotype of Captain O'Reilly.
Right.
The Irish police chief. It's not just a random.
It's not.
Thing. It's because the Irish systematically said we need to put our own people into these positions of power, and because we need to be able to police our own neighborhoods and so forth. And they did it.
What they also did was hate the people less than them, which were us. That's what they shit literally rolls down here. So they could assimilate and change their name, and we couldn't.
Yeah.
Everybody saw what it was like to be a person of color and went, "Fuck that! I ain't doing that no more." Everybody got to move up, and we didn't. And so when I hear all these things that we know to be true, World War II, you know who was interned? Not just Japanese. 700,000 Italians were. There were 10,000 interned Italians in Brooklyn. So imagine you got to opt out of some bullshit. We just didn't get to opt out. And then those people forgot where they were from. Those people forgot what it was like, or for their parents or grandparents, to be one of the others, and wanted to scrub that from memory.
Do you think that, for example, that for the first time in English history, you have a black woman, as part of the royal family?
That's not the first time.
Meghan Markle?
It's not the first time.
It's not the first time.
Not at all.
Really?
No. There's a movie called Belle that was based on.
Oh, right.
Yes.
I never saw it, but I know about it.
Not the
and
first
she was part of English royalty?
She was the reason she was one of the reasons that the English abolished slavery before we did.
Really?
Yes. Yes. The funny thing is, black women has been turning history around before people counted them as noteworthy.
But she was never a princess.
She was part of the royal family.
Okay, but England's first black princess is Meghan Markle.
She's a duchess, she's not a princess. And she'll never be a princess.
Well, but what if her husband becomes king?
You know how many people have to die for him to become king? He'll never.
He has a couple older. Well, he's got his father. And his older brothers, I guess.
And then his brother's sons.
Oh, they go before him?
Yes.
I don't know how it works.
Yes. Yes. You know how many people would I'd be president before he be king.
Okay. And I've seen some interesting posts about this where a lot of people are celebrating Meghan. But I remember this one black woman basically said, here's a woman who is mixed, got a nose job to kind of erase a lot of her features, straightens her hair and so forth. So you can't really expect a lot of black women to really
when somebody says some shit like that to me, you can't tell me that shit and then you're a Michael Jackson fan.
Right.
Stop with that bullshit. Don't tell me that shit.
Well, but you know something? Michael Jackson was not loved until he died like that.
That's
I mean,
not
he was
true.
not. He was not loved at the time of his death. Come on, you remember?
But that was because of the controversy. Michael Jackson.
It was a controversy, and the appearance was kind of crazy.
No, even
really,
black people. No, man.
Really, Michael
No.
Jackson being bone white with a
Hey,
thin
man,
nose.
let me tell you something. People fuck with Michael. They
At the
fuck
end,
with Michael.
I disagree with you. At the very he had not. Well, and remember how we talked about how a hit fixes everything.
For sure.
How many decades had passed since Michael Jackson had a hit?
Let me
at
ask you
that point?
something.
Okay.
Let me ask an honest question.
Honest question.
Michael Jackson changed his nose, right?
Yeah.
And his skin color.
Yes.
Tito never did. Who fucks with Tito?
Right.
Nobody.
Right. I actually interviewed Tito.
Because black people love Michael Jackson because he was ingrained in their DNA.
Okay.
I do not
The
believe
DNA that his kids never got. But go on.
Right. I think that right now on my radio show, if you say something bad about Michael Jackson,
Because he's dead.
not even dead. Not
Once
even
someone
dead.
dies, let me tell you, XXXTentacion, so many people were talking about how he beat his pregnant girlfriend and this, that, and the third. As soon as he died, he's now the next. He's
Yeah,
the
but I saw a
generation's
lot of.
Tupac.
Listen,
Once you die, your entire perception changes based on the public.
I disagree. I think Michael
Really?
Jackson. When John Lennon died, radio,
Mm-hmm.
all across the country, all across all formats, and radio. Let me tell you, this is not going to be popular. It's the most racist format.
Why is that?
I'll play this for these people, that for these people, that for these people. They only, you can't cross formats. You cannot.
Right, because your advertising is based on
That's
a certain
right.
target market. I
So
got
it's,
it.
I'm not saying it's malicious. I'm not saying it's intentional, but it is very much true. When John Lennon died, radio across all formats in New York shut down for 10 minutes.
Okay.
Michael Jackson was a bigger star than John Lennon. Not
You could
not
say
even
that.
close. Not even close.
I think it was close.
It wasn't that close.
I think the Beatles as a whole and Michael Jackson are.
We ain't talking
somewhat
about the
close.
Beatles. We're talking about the guy.
Okay, and John Lennon was essentially the face of the Beatles.
Michael Jackson, because of all the shit that happened to him, and because he was black, that didn't happen. We heard about it on TMZ.
Right, they broke the story.
That's right.
Michael Jackson was generally considered weird at the time that he died.
So was Prince, and he still was dope.
Right. Michael Jackson was considered a different type of weird. Because, I mean, number one, there was the allegations of the child molestation, which ultimately
I believe that's weird, man.
never got proven. And I've
Well, no,
interviewed.
here's the thing.
But the thing is, though, is that I wouldn't put Prince and Michael Jackson at the time of their death in the same category. I think people generally respected Prince a lot more than they respected Michael Jackson
Because
at
of the
that time.
allegations.
Because of the allegations, and also because of the appearance.
So let me ask you.
Prince pretty much. Matter of fact, I feel like Prince got kind of more black as he got older. Remember, he got the afro, and he kind of. I feel like he kind of embraced that side more so than in his early
Both of
career.
those cats died from doing drugs they shouldn't have done. Right?
100%.
Right. The notion is that because Michael Jackson didn't change his appearance, that because Prince didn't change his appearance, he's more lauded than Michael Jackson. But I think that in any conversation, those two names would come up in the top 7 of the greatest artists who ever lived.
Yeah, maybe even the top 5 or 4.
Probably top 5.
Yeah, top 5.
And neither one of them made radio shut down for a little while. Neither one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's really the yardstick that I think would measure respect or admiration.
Respect means that I'll tell you a story about who was the kid that David Bowie died.
Yeah,
I love David Bowie.
Me too.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Dug him. You know, I tried to play a song on urban radio. What the dude say? You can't do it. I said, so even a dude I love, so I'm telling you.
Even like fame, that gets...
That race matters. That dude, and it was a white dude that ran a circle.
Mm-hmm.
of black stations when you can't play it.
Okay.
So you can't tell me that race isn't involved in some. John Lennon, black stations went off the air.
Okay. But Michael Jackson, was considered overall the greatest entertainer of all time.
Not consider. I'm talking about if that's true. We've accepted people. We've had people that ODing because Elvis died of what?
Drugs.
Drugs, and he's still dope. Right?
People still think he's alive.
That's right. People. So don't tell me it's the thing they did. You could be dope. Listen. Why is it drug addicts are so much doper than the rest of us?
You don't make good music when you're sober.
They're so much doper.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I'm so dope, I got to die at 27 because I ain't going to be able to keep this shit
Like
up.
the 27 Club.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
So, but because of the color of who they were, they didn't get what they should have got.
I don't know. A lot of controversy around Mike. And especially now when I see his kids, it's like those are not kids, Mike.
But it's not
like those are not mixed children by any stretch of the imagination. And to me it's almost like it was so weird when you have a talent like a Michael. Like, why on earth would you not want to pass that down to potentially take that DNA and that talent to your children?
I can say Michael Jackson did, and I believe that the shit he did was weird. So let me
right.
Michael Jackson did two things I've never saw anybody do.
Okay.
I was at a concert, and it was a father, a son, and a grandfather, and they all were at a Jackson concert.
Okay.
I defy you to find any artist that exists with. And I'm talking about they are white.
Greatest entertainer of all time.
Right.
So
the greatest entertainer of all time doesn't get the same thing as somebody who was not the greatest entertainer of all time.
What was the second thing that you saw?
And the second thing I saw Michael Jackson do was talk about shit. Now, and I believe it's false. He was fallible. But he talked about race. It's black, it's white, ebony and ivory. He talked about it in a way that no other artists were willing to do at that time. Nobody.
I mean, lots of artists were talking about race during that time, but he did it in a palatable way where everyone no one really got offended by it and so forth. Of course, doing a song with
I'm talking
Paul McCartney.
Yeah, but
sort of.
He talked about, he called some people kikes, Jumi. He did some shit that no one's ever done before. No one.
Well, people had done it, but it was more underground.
Right.
But Gil Scott-Heron talked some shit.
Yeah, he did it out loud.
The last poets talked some shit. But no one of that level.
Right. And I still believe he shouldn't have been sleeping with kids.
Mike actually apologized for those Jewish comments.
I wouldn't.
He did. He said, my lawyer is Jewish. I have nothing against it.
Everybody's lawyer is Jewish. Stop. Well, who says that? But I'm just saying, I just think that he didn't get what his status should have afforded him. And I believe that he shouldn't have been sleeping in bed with kids.
Yeah,
at the same time.
That was fucking weird. But honestly, I really blame the parents as well. Like, who the hell? You have children. If one of your male friends said, "Hey, can I borrow your kids for a night? I'm gonna sleep over with them. We're all gonna sleep in this big bed together."
I think we'll even it out this way. Michael Jackson was the greatest entertainer ever and the worst babysitter ever.
That's how it is.
I think we can.
D.L. Hughley, listen. If you haven't read the book, absolutely get it. And get the audio book. Because you actually, I've read a lot of audiobooks and they're usually read by some random guy. The fact that you could actually hear D.L. Hughley speak for 3-4 hours about these subjects is incredible.
Thank you, man.
So absolutely, if you're not a reader, I'm not really a physical book reader, but I love audiobooks.
You buy audiobooks, so that's...
I buy audiobooks. I go through them, like I said. I spent my entire morning actually listening to your audiobook. It was excellent. Definitely go get it.
Thank you, man.
And, man, looking forward to some more books from you.
Dope, man. I liked writing more than I like reading.
There you go. There you go. My man.
Thank you, man.
Peace.